When learning a new language, everybody wants to be fluent. But what does that even mean? Does it mean that you can speak English like me? Or does it mean that I can speak Spanish like this?
Hola, ¿qué tal, futuros políglotas? En el video de hoy vamos a aprender en qué consisten los 3 pilares fundamentales de mi método para adquirir idiomas.
Shout out to Mr. Salas. Today, we are going to talk in a nice and easy English so that you can use this video as comprehensible input to improve your English about a very interesting topic. What does it really mean to be fluent in a language? Let's go. Hello everybody, I'm Kyle, and here on my channel, Pensando Inglés, I make comprehensible input that you can use to improve your English. What is comprehensible input? Well, it is real life English, or any language, spoken by a native, but slowly to make it understandable to you. This is going to be an intermediate level English video. So, what does it mean to really be fluent in a language? Well, I think that everybody has their own opinion on what it really means. Kind of like how everybody has an opinion on what it means to really be a polyglot. So let's start with what it does not mean, with what being fluent does not mean. First, that you have no accent. And guys, this could not be further from the truth. In order to be fluent, you do not have to have a perfect native accent. A lot of people think that if you are fluent, you're going to speak English just like me, or like somebody from Britain, or if I am fluent in Spanish, I have to have a Mexican, Colombian, or Spanish accent. No, not at all. And in fact, I think accents are cool. Chéveres, chidos. I love talking with somebody who has an accent because it can tell you so much about them. For example, it can tell you where they are from, and it tells you that they are the kind of person who is willing to invest their time in learning a new language. My kind of people. But most importantly, it tells me that they have different experiences in their past than I have in mine. And that means that we have a lot to talk about. If I hear somebody with a heavy Cuban accent, I know that their life story is much different from my own. So my friends, never be embarrassed of your accent. Be proud of it. Number 2, the second thing that being fluent does not mean that you understand everything you hear in your second language. So a lot of people think that if you're fluent in a language, it means that you understand everything you hear. And you never have problems in a conversation. You never have trouble understanding somebody. But guys, that is very untrue. In fact, when I was recently in Colombia, we spent some time with one of my wife's uncles, su tío. And when I first met this man, I could hardly understand anything he said, guys. It was so difficult. I was like, is that Spanish? And that's because he had a different accent than I'm used to with my wife. He's from a different part of Colombia. Also, he's older, so he uses a much different vocabulary than my wife and other young people who I have spoken to. And thirdly, he's from the country or campo, so you know they speak differently out there. But after spending time with him, going on a long drive with him, I was able to understand him and have very nice conversations with him. So guys, when you're around people and you haven't spoken to people who speak that certain way with a certain dialect, certain accent, certain vocabulary, it's going to take a little while to understand them, but that does not mean that you are not fluent. Next, the third thing that being fluent absolutely does not mean that you know every single word in the language that you've learned. Guys, when I'm at my job and people find out that I speak Spanish, they'll ask me, Kyle, how do you say this in Spanish? And I have to be like, I have no idea. They're asking me how to say a very specific piece of machinery or something that is very specific to our job. They're asking me how to say that in Spanish. And guess what, guys? I have no idea. You know why? Because I've never worked in this kind of job in a Spanish-speaking country. Okay? Just because you're fluent in a language does not mean you know how to talk about every single topic and you know all the vocabulary for medical things. You know all of the vocabulary for cooking, all of the vocabulary for science. Okay? Just because you don't know every single word in that language does not mean that you are not fluent. And in fact, guys, going back to my story about work, if I didn't have that job, I would not know how to say that in English. I would not know the name for that thing in English. Only somebody who works in a place like that knows that vocabulary. So guys, never feel like you're not fluent just because you don't know some very specialized vocabulary for a very specific topic. Nobody will, except for experts on that topic. Now guys, what does it really mean to be fluent? This is my definition of somebody who is fluent. Somebody who is fluent in a language can be themselves in that language. Can you go to a party and make people laugh, saying funny things, telling jokes in your second language? Yeah? Then you're fluent. Can you go on a date with a cute girl or a handsome guy in your second language and have awesome conversations and flirt with them, coquetear, flirt with them in your second language? Yeah? Then you're fluent. Can you go into a restaurant all by yourself where everybody only speaks your second language and order drinks and a nice meal? Be polite to the waiter, say thank you very much, may I please have this? Can you do that? Then you, my friend, are fluent. So guys, stop worrying about having a perfect accent. Don't worry if you don't understand everything you hear. Sometimes it's hard for me to understand movies in Spanish because it feels like they play the music really loud when people are talking. Tell me if you guys have noticed that in English movies. And don't worry if you don't know super specialized vocabulary. If you know enough how to say, I don't know what that is, can you explain it to me? Then you, my friend, are fluent. You can live your life. You can get around in a city where everybody speaks that language. Maybe you don't understand everything, but you can say, hey, I didn't understand that last part. Could you repeat it? That is what makes you fluent. Because being fluent means to flow, fluir. So if you can jump into a conversation with someone like me and go with the flow, then you, my friend, are fluent. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Maybe it cleared up for you what it truly means to be fluent. Okay, mis amigos queridos, como siempre, muchísimas gracias por ver. Muchísimas. See guys, I consider myself fluent. I've said that line 10 million times and I still messed it up today. Como siempre, mis amigos queridos, muchísimas gracias por ver. Nos vemos pronto.